Comparing negative numbers, Chapter 2, Lesson 1, Part 2. So the vocabulary, again, it's not actually words, but I want to reiterate that this means greater than, this means less than, and this means equal to. So we can compare any numbers we like, and I want to demonstrate how you would read those numbers across. So I'm going to use my symbols as I stated and then read them across using the terms correctly. So I would fill this in, having the mouth open to my larger number, and I would read it 24 is less than 42. Again, I'm using the vocabulary. In number 36, I'm putting my mouth open to the greater number. I know 2 is bigger because it's bigger than 1, and 4/5 is a proper fraction, so it must be less than 1. And I'd read 2 is greater than 4/5. Number 37, I'd say 3/7 is greater than 2/7. In this example, 7/9 is less than 6/7. Here, 4 89/100 is greater than 4 809,000. And here it would be 56/100 is less than 5/8. So now I'm going to use the number line to compare negative numbers. Just as in the positive number line, I want to reinforce that the further to the right you go, the greater the numbers get. So even though we might, with negative numbers, see that the digit is larger, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's larger. A positive will always be greater than a negative, no matter what. So here we have 4 is greater than 2, again, because 4 is right here, and 2 is here. 4 is further to the right. So let's look at the next one where we have a negative. I have -4. -4 is over here compared to +3. +3 is further than the right. So even though this -4 is a larger digit, because that's a positive, -4 is less than 3. We can compare two negative numbers as well. So I have -1 and -10. You might be thinking to yourself, well, they're both negative and 10 is a bigger digit, but look, -1 is much further to the right than -10. I always like to use the example, would you rather owe me $1 or $10? Of course, you'd rather owe me less, so you'd want that one. And lastly, -6 compared to -2, and I locate them on the number line. Here's -6, and here's -2. -2 is further to the right, so -6 is less than -2. So let's use this number line here to practice. On number 41, I have 7, +7, and +9. 9 is further to the right, so I have my mouth open to the 9. 7 is less than 9. In the example here, -10 and +8. Here's -10. Here's +8. Of course, a positive we know automatically is way further to the right. So -10 is less than +8. Number 43, -6 and -11. Here's -11. Here's -6. I'm looking for my dot that's further right or closer to 0 on the negatives. So -6 is greater than -11. Why don't you pause, try and answer 44 through 46 on your own, and then come back and compare your answers with mine. -8 is greater than -9. 1 is greater than -5. And -7 is less than -4. I'm sure you did great. You can write your own inequalities to represent real-world situations. Again, you're using those symbols in the vocabulary just as they're stated to write down an inequality with a greater than or less than symbol. Here, negative 15 degrees is colder than. We know in temperatures, colder means less than negative 3. So you just write negative 15 degrees Celsius is less than negative 3 degrees Celsius. Please write them as you read them, all right? Don't try and switch the order. Don't try and put the greater one first. I want to see you using both symbols. Again, use greater than and less than. So try number 53. An elevation of negative 1,600 meters. So I'm going to put that one first. Negative 1,600 meters, I'll abbreviate with an N, is greater than. So my mouth is open to that. An elevation of negative 2,100 meters. All right. And number 54, a loss of 20 yards. So a loss, remember that's a negative. Negative 20 yards is less than, so I put my less than symbol, a loss of 30 yards. Negative 30 yards. This one's a little confusing, and I don't want this to throw you off because we're comparing two negatives, and I know you're thinking, but Miss Rico, negative 20 is further to the right than negative 30 on a number line. This is something that's an absolute value question. Basically, it's saying you lost more yards here, which is the absolute value of negative 30. You're going to see more examples like this in your next lesson. If you get something like this wrong, I wouldn't be too upset about it because the wording is a little confusing. All right, so now we can do the opposite. If we're given an inequality, we can write a statement based off of that would be like a real world situation. So in this example, 90 meters is greater than negative 100. Negative 90 meters is greater than negative 129 meters. You could put it in terms of elevation because they're talking about height, or you could have talked about distance. Just make something that makes sense. So an elevation of negative 90 meters is greater than an elevation of negative 129 meters. So we have here negative $190 is less than negative $148. Then you can just write what you said. Negative $190 balance. Again, that makes sense. We're talking about money, a bank account, the balance in a bank account. So a negative $190 balance is less than a negative $148 balance. And trying to give it some context, have something that makes sense. Number 6, negative 9 degrees Celsius is less than negative 6 degrees Celsius. We know they're talking about temperature. This is an easy one. A temperature of negative 9 degrees Celsius is less than negative 6 degrees Celsius. And nothing needed to overcomplicate.